Hello, and welcome to day 3 of the 7 days of movement challenge. If you haven't done day 1 and day 2, I recommend that you head on back there and do them. There are some fundamental ideas and concepts that I've introduced and that will continue for the next 4 days. So pop on over, do the thing. They are 10 minutes each. All right, and then come back here and start with day 3. Bring yourself to standing. We're going to start standing, and today we're looking at the space of the hips. So the hip joint is a ball and socket joint where the thigh bone, this femur bone, sits into the pelvis. Yeah, so some of us have quite tight hip space where the head of the femur sits quite tightly into the hip socket, and others of us have more space in that joint, which allows for a little bit more range. So we're going to create some awareness and hopefully a little bit of space in the hip, right? So we are standing, we have spread our feet and we've lifted our arches and starting to shift the weight from side to side. And as you do that, shifting through the feet, I want you to notice how that weight shifts through the ankles, up into the knees, and then ultimately lands up here in the space of the hip. And you can start to almost think to draw a figure of 8 or move through a figure of 8 as you shift. So as opposed to just side to side, you're starting to introduce a little bit of rotation. Yeah. Listening to what happens in the hip socket as you do that. And that is coming from the feet, right? So we're not trying to create anything from this part of the body. We're generating from the feet up through the legs into the space of the pelvis. Yeah, and you'll notice that because the body's an integrated system, and this is what I've said for the first 2 days, and I will say it every day, the shoulder girdle is also starting to rotate, to twist, and that is because the spine is starting to twist. Oh, it's magical. I love it. I could nerd out on this stuff for a very long time. But let's come back to standing. All right, from here, you're going to softly bend the knee of the lifted leg and find some nice balance on the supporting leg. You can hold onto a chair or a desk if you need to. And I want you to start just coming in with the knee and then coming out with the knee. So we're leading with the knee joint, but that is going to create internal rotation of the hip and external rotation of the hip. And you might feel as you do this that the muscles of the supporting leg are going to switch on and activate. Yeah. So keep the body responsive. Careful not to jam back into your supporting knee. And listen for that internal rotation, external rotation. And it's quite effortless in a way. A majority of the work is happening in the supporting leg. Yeah, and then come back, shift your weight into your other side, find your balance, and then internal, external, internal, external. I'm allowing my supporting leg to receive a little bit of the bouncing, a little bit of the rising and falling, or lifting and sinking. That happens. Internal, external, internal, external. Great. So those are our first 2 motions. Internal rotation of the hip, external rotation. Yeah, in and out. Come back to center. We're going to move through a full rotation. So put your weight back onto your standing leg, and we're going to bring that leg across the midline, lead with the knee, take a circle, and then let it come back down. And you can make this circle as big or as small as you need to. If you have any clicking or crunching in the hip, make it a little bit smaller. And I like doing this standing because it really works, the supporting leg. It's great to do it on the floor. It's just even better to do it standing because you activate all those stabilizer muscles of the foot and the leg. Good. Change direction. Bring the knee up and out and then in. Up and in. Yeah, lovely big rotation. Rolling through that ball and socket joint. Yeah, that's it. Good, last one. Good. You might have already realized that you've got to stay active in your center, right? So if you let go completely of your center body, you might be a little bit off balance because there's nothing really supporting the spine and the pelvis. So see if you can find a little gentle fire in the belly here as you roll out the hip. Change direction, lift the knee up to the side and bring it in over the midline. Whoop, here goes my balance. And again, just holding onto something if you need. I'm sorry if there's a little bit of sound overspill. I've got colleagues next door. So if it gets a little crazy, it's because they've turned the music on, having a party. Hit last one and come back to center. Beautiful. Shake it out if you need to. Right, you're going to shift your weight back over onto your first standing leg. Again, you can hold onto something if you need some extra support. We're going to take some very easy forward flexion and extension of the hip joint, right? And that's going to be a swing forward, swing back, swing forward, swing back. And it doesn't have to be super high, yeah? It can be nice and low and easy. Stay supported through your standing legs. So you got forward flexion, extension, flexion, extension of the hip, yeah? Flexion, extension. So closing, opening, closing, opening. Nice and loose, look after your lower back. You can bring the shoulder girdle slightly forward of the pelvis if you need to. Last one and two. Beautiful, change, leg, shifting weight. Finding something to hold on to if you need to. Nice challenge if you don't. Easy swings, flexion, extension, flexion, extension. Using your breath, staying connected to your center and noticing how this whole structure is integrated. Yeah, everything works as one. So while we've got the attention on the hip, the whole body is involved. Last one and come out. Great, very nice. We're going to come down onto the back. Make sure you've got something comfortable underneath your head if you need it. If you're okay with your head on the floor, that's great. Sometimes we need a little bit of support there. So we're going to go back into rotations. You have a choice to keep your supporting leg either bent or extended. So hug your right leg in towards your chest and just make a choice if you want to bend or stretch. Okay. If you stretch, you're going to encourage a bit more openness in the front of the hip joint. And if you bend, it might just be a little bit more stable and a little bit more comfortable. It will depend on your structure. I'm going to go with an extended leg. Fold that right knee in towards your chest, and I want you to check in with that very deep hip flexion that we've created there. We experienced that yesterday with the child's pose, and now we're pulling that knee to chest, a deep flexion of the hip. Okay, from here, you can use your arms to guide your leg in circles. And you're going to take your brain and put it into the hip joint and see if you can sense the head of the femur rolling in that socket. Yeah. Might be a little bit clicky or crunchy, or maybe it's actually really nice and gooey and open. Change direction, rolling across and around. Think of keeping your shoulder girdle connected to the ground. We can allow for a little bit of overspill of movement. That's no problem. Come back to the center. Good. Let's change legs. Make sure you do the same thing on the other side and what you did on the first side. Hug the left knee to the chest and feel that deep flexion of the hip joint. Take a few breaths here. And then start your circles. For me, I kind of like to almost pull, like compress as much as I can. Really test that flexion. Rolling through. Changing direction. Yeah, I'm sorry for the noise over spool if there is any. We're having fat conversations next door. I'm sure the music will start in a moment. The last one or two. I think I did cue change direction. So change direction if you haven't already. We would have gone both ways. And rest. Bring your feet towards the floor and bring your heels quite close to your sitting bones. We're going to roll the pelvis over to the right-hand side and allow the legs to fall over to the right. Then bring the pelvis back to center. Feel the back of the pelvis on the floor and roll the pelvis to the left and allow the legs to come with you. So just be cautious that you're not collapsing towards the floor. That can be quite jarring for the back. You want to guide the legs as they come with the pelvis or as a result of the pelvis rolling from side to side. Now, this is a really lovely one to do at the end of the day. Let's get some movement, not only into the hips, but also into the spine. Just a little bit of rotation into the spine. Last two. And come over to the left and back to the center. Good. Roll yourself up onto all fours. And please take care with the next one. Just do as your body allows. I'd like to move into some hip extension. So we're going to walk one leg forward into a lunge. If you need to put a pillow underneath the back knee, please feel free to do so. And bring your hands as close to the floor as you can. If you need to, you can prop up onto your fingers, or if you have yoga blocks, you can come up onto yoga blocks here. The idea is to shift the pelvis forward so that we open up this front line of the hip into hip extension, right? The front leg again is in that deep flexion. So we hinge forward and, hinge back and then hinge forward and open. In this position, you're welcome to shift from side to side. And for me, I like to squeeze my knee towards that shoulder, which activates my adductors and means that I'm not completely hanging into the stretch. You can also think of squeezing your back glute a little bit if that feels more supportive. And as always, I've got a little fire in my belly that keeps my spine supported. 3, 2, and 1. Shifting back to all fours, take your time to get there, and then bring your other leg forward into that flexion. See what happens if you shift your pelvis back versus if you bring it forward and open up that back hip. And again, shift it back, see what happens, and bring it forward. Squeeze knee to shoulder, and you can start to move into little gentle sways, side to side. I like to get this heel directly underneath the knee. For me, that feels like good alignment. And by good, I mean just by like stable or secure. If my foot was a little bit closer or a little bit further back, it might be a bit strenuous in the knee, but you'd need to test that. Yeah. Come back to the center. Back up onto all fours. And then we're going to go back into the child's pose that we did yesterday, reaching the arms forward and rolling the pelvis from side to side, massaging out the front of your ankles, feeling what's going on in the knees like we did yesterday, and checking in with what's happening in the hip space. A lovely deep massage for that part of the body. And then slowly bring that to center. Shift onto all fours. Tap your toes and gently make your way to an A-frame, walking your feet to your hands and your hands to your feet. Taking a breath in, upside down, and then slowly rolling yourself back up to stand. Sorry, I'm losing my hair is coming undone here. Good. Come back to stand, take a few little gentle bounces. And I just want you to notice the hip space and if anything has changed from when you first started. Yeah, maybe there's a little bit of warmth. Maybe there's a little bit of extra space or movement. And know that you can keep coming back to these explorations at any point in your day. Doesn't take too much time. Take a long breath in and let it go. And I wish you a very happy rest of your day, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Thank you for being here, and I will see you tomorrow for day 4. Lots of love. Ciao.